Hey, what's going on, gamers? Today I'm going to go over the best MMORPGs of 2023. My name is Buchkin, and I hope you enjoyed this video. The first game on this list that I'll be playing in 2023 is Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is a pretty good MMO, I would say. It's free to play for the base game with some limitations on what you can do, and the expansions regularly go on sale. I'd recommend getting the Path of Fire and Heart of Thorns one whenever it goes on sale, because usually you can pick it up for $15, and that's probably thousands of hours of content you have just right there. And I'll let you know on some interesting information. I've probably put a couple thousand hours in Guild Wars 2, and I've only scratched the surface of the game. Now let's get into why I think Guild Wars 2 is a good game to play in 2023. The first reason I think Guild Wars 2 is going to be fun in 2023 is because I enjoy the content loop of doing open world meta events, grinding gold, and collecting things. Guild Wars 2 is probably one of the best collection MMOs out there. It's an MMO that features horizontal progression, which means that while your character does not get more powerful over time as you collect gear, you will reach a point where you will no longer be able to make your character more powerful. Now, I will say it did take me hundreds of hours to actually get Ascended gear, which is the best gear you can get in terms of stats. So you still have a lot of vertical progression in the game, but you will reach a point to which the rest of the progression in the game is horizontal progression, and most of your collecting will be mostly cosmetic things such as legendary items that have really cool effects. What this means is that your character does get more powerful over time as you collect gear, but you will reach a point where you're no longer able to make your character more powerful. And this occurs once you get a full set of Ascended gear. More on that in a bit. The power level of Guild Wars 2 has been the same for many years and shows no signs of increasing. The benefit of this is once you reach the top level, you can focus on the real end game, collecting cosmetics, achievements, masteries, and legendaries. Now, legendaries in Guild Wars 2 have the same stats as Ascended gear, and they offer no power increase, which is weird, right? You think legendary armor would be like the most powerful. Now, I think it is the most powerful, mostly because of the quality of life that it gives you. They offer you the ability to switch the stats on them at a whim without grinding any materials to change the stats, unlike Ascended items. This means that once you achieve a full set of legendary weapons, armor, and accessories, you will never need to get another piece of armor or weapon of that type for any character that uses that type. You can use your legendary items on every single character that you have that uses that type of weapon or armor. It's a supreme quality of life benefit. However, it'll be likely that it will take you at least a full year of playing the game being dedicated to collecting legendaries to achieve this. I myself have not gotten past the Ascended gear yet, and I have thousands of hours in the game, but that's more attributed to me playing the game how I want and not being very efficient on unlocking things. Now, I will say, if you're someone who doesn't like capping out at the same power level for many years, or keeping the same exact equipped gear for many years, I'd probably say you might want to try Guild Wars 2, but it also might be a pass. It's not a waste of time because it is genuinely a fun game with some great gameplay from PvE to PvP. However, if you want constant vertical progression in a game like World of Warcraft, meaning you want something to work towards in terms of the power level of your character, I think I have some more recommendations for you. Now, just to get into why I like the horizontal progression of Guild Wars 2 is because I can leave the game for any amount of time and I can come back to my characters that have Ascended armor, and they're likely gonna still have the best armor for the build that my character is in. Which means I can go play World of Warcraft for 6 months, not even touch Guild Wars 2, come back, jump right into Guild Wars 2, and start having fun again. The next best MMO to play in 2023 would be World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King. Wrath of the Lich King was a World of Warcraft's second expansion, and it's currently where WoW Classic is at. WoW Classic is a system that Blizzard has put into place where they go through each of the game's expansion over a course of like 18 to 24 months. If you're watching this at the end of 2022 or early 2023, then Wrath Classic is on the cusp of releasing Ulduar, the second raid tier of Wrath, and it's known as one of the most enjoyable raids ever released in any MMO. WoW Classic is a game where your power level will rise over time as you get more gear from endgame and content such as raids or PvP. Personally, I've been playing World of Warcraft Classic since 2019 and have progressed from Vanilla to Burning Crusade and now into Wrath of the Lich King. It's been really cool to see my characters on my account progress through each patch and get cool new gear that makes me do big damage. A great benefit of WoW is that it's not certainly going anywhere. Now is a great time to jump into Wrath of the Lich King, as it's still really early on as the first phase is just wrapping up. It still has over a year left, and Ulduar will likely be here for 5 to 6 months. you'll be able to catch up really quickly with heroic pluses that are coming out alongside Old War, which will feature raid drops from Naxxramas and regular heroic dungeons. However, these heroic dungeons will be a little bit more difficult, but I don't expect them to be overly hard. I've had no trouble pugging raids to get gear either, and pugging Naxxramas would be pretty easy. I would still recommend finding a guild to play with, as making bonds with other players is one of my favorite aspects about MMOs. Another MMO is also World of Warcraft, Dragonflight. Dragonflight is the most recent expansion in World of Warcraft, and it's just released in late 2022. Currently, as of making this video, the Race to World First has just come to an end, and Echo is the first guild to kill Razakath. While Dragonflight is making the rounds as a greatly improved World of Warcraft compared to what we had in Shadowlands and BFA. No more borrowed power, no more AP grinds or grinding or known to increase your player power. The open world content is optional once again, meaning that you can explore it if you want to, but it's not necessary to keep your character up to speed. You get the main gear from raids and Mythic Plus, which is one of the things I like most about WoW. And I'm glad they're bringing that aspect of the game back, because I was tired of having to do world quests all day every day. Now I can do them whenever I want, and I've actually been doing them even more now that they're not required, which is kind of funny. World of Warcraft Dragonflight also brings in revamped talent trees, which is probably one of the biggest changes from Shadowlands to Dragonflight. If you played World of Warcraft back in the day before Mists of Pandaria, or have played World of Warcraft Classic, these talent trees might be a little bit more familiar to you. However, they're still really different from the ones we had back in the day, but they offer more player choice than the ones we had in the most recent expansions from Mists of Pandaria onward. Another cool thing they've done is they've switched the way the Mythic Plus seasons are done, and they are essentially doing it to where you have some old dungeons and new dungeons in each Mythic Plus season. So like right now there's like Temple of the Jade Serpent and Court of Stars, in addition to the new Dragonflight dungeons that are in the Mythic Plus season. Overall, WoW Dragonflight is a new fresh take on the way content is released, and that they're trying to keep content updates consistent and often, as they've already released their roadmap for 2023, and it looks like we're going to have a content-packed year in World of Warcraft. Another really cool feature in World of Warcraft Dragonflight is Dragon Riding. Dragon Riding has been making the rounds around the WoW community as being one of the very positive and popular additions to the game overall. It literally increases the speed at which you can go from point A to point B really fast, almost 4 times as fast. Dragon fighting mechanics are kind of like Guild Wars 2 mount system, where you have like pitch and dive mechanics, which is really cool. It's not just pointing your character and going to point A and from point A to point B. Now you actually have to take into consideration more than just pointing in one direction. If you quit during Shadowlands or BFA, maybe you can come back and give Dragonflight another try in 2023, as they've improved on a lot so far, and it looks like they're going to keep updates consistent, so there won't be a large drop in content like there was in previous expansions. It still remains to be seen if they will deliver on that, but we'll find out, and hopefully they will. If you've never played WoW, I'd say Dragonflight's a great time to jump in, as the leveling experience has never been quicker. However, I will say, if you want the game to feel more like an adventure, I want to stay within the WoW universe, I'd recommend playing Wrath of the Lich King, as the leveling experience is a lot better. While the leveling process does take longer, I feel like it's a better journey and a better adventure. But that will likely depend on the player and what they want out of the game. Hopefully I've given you enough information on WoW Classic and Dragonflight to give you an informed opinion on whether or not you should choose which one. Speaking of adventures, I'd recommend trying out Old School RuneScape. This game has been out for a long time and the graphics are very dated. If that's something that's a deal breaker to you, then look past this one. However, I recently started playing Old School RuneScape on a fresh account, and I had to say I've been having an absolute blast. RuneScape's really all about the adventure and the journey. It's a game that's so true to the base definition of an MMORPG, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. RuneScape features a fairly unique system in which you have a whole lot of different skills you can level up all the way to the max level of 99. Here's your combat skills, which will affect how proficient you are in fighting enemies, and then there are non-combat skills like woodcutting, mining, smithing, runesmithing, firemaking, and more. You can level these skills individually by just grinding in the open world, or you can do quests that give you skill experience. But it will take a combination of both to make the journey complete, and it will take you a very long time. As a new player, I would say just focus on the one thing you will have fun with, as there will be a lot of depth to this game. You'll find what you like and what you don't like, and I'd say just focus on what you like. To me, the biggest thing that stands out in RuneScape is the way quests work. Quests in RuneScape aren't like quests in WoW or most other MMORPGs. Quests in RuneScape really do feel like a multi-step adventure. Compared to World of Warcraft or New World or any of the current MMORPGs, where you're just going and slaying X amount of boars or going to loot X amount of chests, RuneScape has hundreds of quests and they all feel like they have a purpose. Each one takes you on an adventure. In this adventure, you usually have an objective that will span multiple steps and you'll go to multiple locations. And usually these quests will have really cool rewards tied behind them, such as being able to use a new type of armor or a new type of weapon, or giving you access to a worldwide teleportation network. I think old school RuneScape does questing better than any MMORPG out there on the market right now. There's also hundreds and hundreds of hours of free-to-play content. If you don't want to pay a dime, old school RuneScape is the game for you, as there are so many things to do in the free-to-play world that you will never run out of things to do for hundreds and hundreds of hours. If you have an adventuring itch to scratch, old school RuneScape would be great for you. Now it's time for some honorable mentions. The first is Final Fantasy XIV. FF14 is less like of an MMORPG, but more of an RPG MMO. The majority of the game, you'll find yourself in an RPG where you're going through a main story quest. This main story quest at times can be very daunting, especially at the very beginning in A Realm Reborn, where very little cutscenes are actually voice acted, and you have to read paragraphs of text to know what's going on. However, overall, I found that Final Fantasy XIV has the best storyline of any MMORPG out there, and I would say that the raid content is top tier. It's been a slow roll for me in Final Fantasy XIV, as I've only made it to Stormblood so far. However, I've heard that Shadowbringers is incredibly good, and Endwalker is a great conclusion to the storyline. The main thing that prevents me from playing Final Fantasy XIV more is getting through the storyline. And while I know you can buy a story skip, I really don't want to go past it because I've been enjoying the story so far, and I think it'd be a shame to skip past some really good story, and I just don't want to miss it. So I think I'll just continue to go through the story in my own time, and eventually I might catch up, but we'll see. One thing I will say is I love the system of where your one character can play as any class. I've leveled almost every class or job, as a Final Fantasy player would say, up to level 70, which is where Stormblood caps out. And now that I've finally finished Stormblood, I'll be jumping into Shadowbringers at some time in 2023. Overall, if you're an MMO player or an RPG player and you want a really good story, then I couldn't recommend Final Fantasy XIV more. However, if you're a player that does not care about story, I would still recommend Final Fantasy XIV, but you might want to buy a story skip to get to the endgame faster, because the dungeons and the raids, from what I've seen, are incredible. Another one I would recommend is New World. While they've gotten off to a rough start and have had many problems with exploits, I'd say that their model is one of the best. It's sort of like Guild Wars 2, where it's buy to play. However, as of right now, their in-game cash shop does not have any pay-to-win elements. I think this is a rarity nowadays, and it should be celebrated. I think other studios should look at the way Amazon has monetized New World, and it could be a success for them. I mean, maybe they haven't put in things to the cash shop because the game has been in a terrible state for a long time, but now with their updates recently, I think the new player experience is really good, as I've been going through it recently. I think New World is a game that everyone should be looking at and paying attention to in 2023, because they've been making improvements to the game, and it'd be really cool to have a game with fair monetization practices that is really fun. Overall, I find the gameplay pretty fun in New World. I just need more in-game content to do, and I would like to have larger scale combat to do, other than just PvP. However, the dungeons that I have done in New World have been really fun, so I would recommend playing New World in 2023. Some games you should be on the lookout for, I think, is Blue Protocol, Throne of Liberty, and Ashes of Creation. The first two might actually release this year, however, I don't expect Ashes of Creation to be out until 2025. But there may be an Alpha 2 this year, and it would be really interesting to see some gameplay from Ashes of Creation. Hopefully AOC does not turn into something like Star Citizen, where it never releases. Alright, well that's about it for me in terms of MMOs that I plan to play in 2023. I'm sure there might be more that will pop up, and I'll let you guys know whenever that does happen. But with just these that I've mentioned, I already have my hands full, as MMOs take a lot of time to play, and I'm probably not even going to get through all of these. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like down below, and if you have anything that I can improve on, please leave a comment and let me know. Good luck on your MMO adventures in 2023 and beyond. See ya!